Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with jazz drummer Dan Pugach. This talented cat is now promoting a new 2018 CD called Plus One. He is originally from Israel, and he served in the mandatory 3-year military duty as a drummer for the Air-Force Orchestra and learned so much. From there, he received his bachelor's degree from the Berklee College of Music and his master's from the City College of New York, studying under Joe Lovano, George Garzone, and others. Man, that's an education. His Nonet is a 9-piece ensemble which features Dan's original compositions. He has been described as a rock-solid cat on the drums. So get to know him and dig this interview, my friends.
Well, hey, thank you for taking some time out to speak with me about your life in jazz and the new CD Plus One.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Sure. So let's go ahead and dive right in. Let's talk about the album. Talk to me about this album. How do you feel about it now that it's out? And kind of talk to me about the artistic forces that went into it.
The album is a Nonet. It's a 6-horn and rhythm section project that I've been doing for around 5 years. It's my debut, so it's my first time recording on my own. And it's a project I'm very, very proud of. We've been playing a lot in New York and the area. It features my wife on vocals. Well, she wasn't my wife at the time, but now she is. It's a great combination of folk arranged into jazz and jazz arranged into backbeat. It's a nice mix.
It's a nice evolution of the jazz sound for sure. I agree. So you're originally from Israel. Talk to me about your childhood and how you actually got into jazz.
Oh my God! So I started as an amateur rock drummer, and at some point my teacher said, I think we're good. We don't really know what to talk about, so we're going to let you go. And then my dad found a jazz guru who took me in and showed me the music of Miles Davis and Charlie Parker. That challenge freaked me out, so I got into jazz and I started exploring it, and the rest is history. I always took it to the next level, exploring it. So I went to a jazz program in my high school, and then I got accepted to play drums for the Army band, and then I went to a jazz school during that time, and then I went to college. So it was actually never my original idea to become a jazz musician.
So let me ask you this. You had a 3-year mandatory military duty, and at that point you got into the Air-Force Orchestra.
Yes.
Talk to me about how big that was for you. How much did you grow as a musician doing that?
Oh man, I've learned everything during that time because I had to play with pop bands, and every gig was radically different. We would have to rehearse an hour before, and then they would either drive us or fly us to some military base and entertain the play in their heavy ceremonies. So I would have to play all styles all the time. So coming from being a rock drummer to becoming all of a sudden a jazz drummer, and then in the Army, I had to play everything from Middle Eastern music to Jewish to American rock and roll, pop, everything. So I basically learned how to groove during the Army.
When did you actually come? When you came to the Berklee College of Music, was that when you actually moved to America?
Yeah, I came for that.
Right on. What was that move like for you? What kind of culture shock? How did it feel to go from Israel to America?
Oh wow, that's a good question. It wasn't easy at first. The language was different. I was surrounded by a lot of people who do the same as what I do, as opposed to being maybe one of the few jazz drummers in my age group in Israel. But that opened my mind and it made me more humble. So I got to meet a lot of musicians of all styles, not only jazz, and all different cultures and countries. It really opened my mind coming to Berklee and pursuing a career in music.
From there, you go to the City College of New York, and you study with Joe Lovano and George Garzone, and so many great names. What did you learn in that formal environment of college that helped you so much as a musician?
I was exposed to other subjects other than just performing. That's how I actually learned about arranging and writing for big band. I used to take lessons with Mike Holliber. He actually exposed me to arranging for 5 horns, getting into big band writing. Up until then, I was just pursuing drumming and playing for other bands. I never even considered being my own, being a band leader. So, through Mike Holliber, I got into arranging, and that's how I started in Nonet. It was thanks to that exposure that I started arranging.
Are you glad that you've expanded out into such big arrangements? Does that make more sense to you?
Definitely.
What is it about that big sound that you like the most? I always like to talk to big band leaders and those that have big outfits. What is it about that big sound that you like so much?
I love the overall. I love the control of the arc of the song, so I can actually shape the direction of the song and not leave it up to chance or up to improvising like in a small group. So I can actually control dynamics. I can control the where and when and how the climax appears. It's not really only about the bigger sound, because not everyone's playing all the time at the same time. I love the different colors I can create by combining different instruments with their doublings on woodwinds and brass mutes, and there's so many possibilities, and I feel like that's the challenge, and that's the fun. That's what I love playing with, and I'm still learning about it. Every arranging I do, every tune I write is a new way to explore that sound. So, why do you love jazz? Wow, that's a good question. I got into it in small dosage. So going from rock towards fusion, towards Brecker and Chick Corea, the modern guys, and then later going back to hard bop. I was stuck on hard bop for years, like Hard Silver and the Messengers and the 3-horn bands. And then back to bebop and even the old school stuff, and back to Basie. I love the sound. I love the dynamics. I love swing. I'm a huge fan of ballads, actually. That's the tune I would always call in jam sessions. I just love the fact that each tune can sound differently with different musicians, different night. Yeah, and I try to do that in my band. So you've just released your first solo album. Let me ask you this. If we talk, say, 10 years from now, what do you want to see happen with your career? How do you want to see it develop? I will have more albums out. There'll probably be, a couple of them will be a Nonet configuration. A few will be full big band. And there'll be some trio. There'll be just a variety of album out there. I'd like to keep touring and playing out. Yeah, and I hope the sound exploration will expand. I'm actually curious to see what sounds we come up with 10 years from now. So let me ask you this. Everyone has a version of who you are, your family, your friends, and your fans. But when you wake up and face the world, who do you think you are? Well, I'm this quirky, silly guy who can also be very serious when it comes to work. So if you ask anyone who knows me, they'll say, oh, Pugach is weird and funny and serious at the same time. And then that's also how I play. I guess that's a good thing, where my personality comes out in my playing. I don't really mean to do that, but it comes out anyway. You get the serious, sophisticated, harsh almost timing and phrasing, odd metery, kind of precise and crisp, but also very funny. Like there's a lot of humor in the writing and in the playing. That's what you would hear about me as a player and as a person. Perfect. I think that's a great way to wrap everything up. Dan, thank you for talking to me about Plus One, about your life and music. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to yet another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in Israel, New York, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Dan for his time, his music, and his stories. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino on the iTunes Store. Visit neonjazz at youtube.com. And for everything Neon Jazz, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.